Hello, welcome to the Oglala Lakota Artspace studio conversation. Today we are featuring Helene Gaddie. Helene Gaddie is well known throughout the reservation and the entire country here for her um, sewing skills, all of her regalia making and her applique. Helene actually created my very first fancy shawl outfit when I was around 7, 8 years old. It was a beautiful pink fancy shawl outfit with leggings and a cape, and there was butterflies all over it. And I, s- I still have it to this day, and it's probably something I'll probably pass down to my niece Stella. So, Helene, how are you today?
Ampetu washte or Ktayatu washte, Wanakta washdewi imachiapi, Washichu chaje Helene Gaddie, Oglala Lakota Makoche imataha, Shumnuni alwati. Good evening, everybody. My name is Helene Gaddie. My Lakota name is Pretty Flower Woman, and I come from the Oglala Lakota Nation. I live in a community called Lost Dog in the northeast part of the Pine Ridge Reservation, and I'm really glad to be here and be interviewed. Chungshi Charlie is also my goddaughter, and I really like to emphasize kinship because our Lakota way of life is a kinship. We honor our kinship. So I just want to say good evening and thank you for welcoming me, Chungshi Charlie.
Thank you for that, and thank you for acknowledging and recognizing that. Sometimes it's hard to remember to always honor those kinships, especially because we're always growing our family every day, whether that be through business or our careers, or just by passing somebody and waving to them. So, to start off with our studio conversation, I would just like to get to know you as an artist. Who are you as an artist, Helene?
I do everything. Art is it's something that I sew. I ever since I was little, I watched my aunts and my uncles. I grew up in a house full of artists. My grandma was an artist. It wasn't just recently it became popular, artists, entrepreneurs. When I was growing up, it was something to get us through. All
Yeah.
winter long, I grew up out in the country on a farm, and with all the different animals, I always think about like, whoa, we had chickens and ducks and geese and everything. But all of the people that were there were artists. My grandma was an artist. She did beadwork. She sewed. She made quilts. My uncles made lamps, teepees. My uncle he's not here anymore. Uncle Jerry Quiver, he did the teepees with the buffaloes on the side. It was the first one that I've seen. And I went to Santa Monica Boulevard, and there they were in a gift shop on Santa Monica Pier in California, you know. And so they were pretty and real humble artists. My aunt, she beaded, she made medallions, she made earrings, she made the most intricate belt buckles, and I just grew up watching them. So growing up around that setting, it was just a given that if you wanted something, you make your own. I always loved to dance. Ever since I was little, my grandma made my outfits. And when I got to be old enough, I wanted certain things on them. I wanted them to be more spectacular than anything, and learned all of these new creative ways to put designs on them, and learned applique. And when I met my husband, my in-laws were artists. They did beadwork, the most beautiful beadwork, still do. His auntie Phyllis is a really, she's a seamstress, makes every medium of sewing, Pendletons, everything, the most beautiful buckskin dresses. Yeah. And so it was like somewhere, I just always hung out, and she taught me a lot, taught me how to make the buckskin leggings and the dresses, and then later on, and the shirts and different things like that. And then later on, and I'm like, okay, I need help with this. And then pretty soon I'm showing her, reminding her how to do these things. And we, trade secrets on how to get things done.
Yep.
So, yeah. And so it's like the tricks of the trade. but it was more to survive. You know, you have to be where we come from here on the Pine Ridge Reservation out here in South Dakota. You have to be very creative and very motivated. You have to have self discipline and motivation. Your artwork is your income. You know, you can be the most educated person, but there aren't any jobs unless you create them yourself. And with your artwork, always a demand for fancy shawl outfits. There's always for different dance outfit and regalia. There's always a high demand for, you know, different things. Just in general, I guess even, you know, giveaway stuff. So you create, you know.
People want ribbon skirts now, and a lot of people who don't know how to make them, they're willing to pay high price for these ribbon skirts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I like to teach people because, you know, you hear a lot of people say, oh, that's expensive. I can't afford that, you know, and you put your prices out there because you know your worth. Know your worth. When you're an artist and you are creating these beautiful pieces for people, charge what they're worth and charge your labor that goes into them. And, you know, I couldn't, like, my grandma was the most beautiful, honest, hardworking woman, but I couldn't. And she used to say, how much? I'm going to buy it. You know, I'm going to buy it for your cousin. And I'm like, no, grandma. And so I'd like sometimes not show her what I'm making because I don't want to overcharge her. So even if it was worth $100, $200, $20, it went for $10, or, you know, just because it was grandma, and then later on she'll give you something more. But you have to put that in there, know how much labor that goes into there. And a lot of people can't afford it, or they don't want to pay that much. So I offer my, you know, my skill, like, okay, the barter, that's the best way. Let's trade. I know that there's some really beautiful seamstresses who do star quilts, and seamsters. I have a nephew who taught me how to make star quilts. He tutored me through 2 of them, and that's it. I try to do them on my own. No, I will trade, you know, something of similar value, or come visit. I'll teach you how to make it so you can make your own, and, you know, so you can invest in your own. You'll know how. You'll have it, and you won't have to pay what you
feel
pay for something.
of that, because when I was younger, you taught me how to sew. You showed me the ropes, and I won't tell anyone your trade secrets on how you lay down your ribbon. But that was another thing, is when I used to dance fancy shawl as a junior dancer, my mom would not let me switch to jingle from fancy. And the only way I was capable of switching is if I made my own outfit, because she wasn't going to help me get that dress. So I taught myself. I figured it out. I got some newspaper, held it up to my body, and I figured, okay, I'll just cut a dress out of this newspaper, trial and error. And next thing you know, I'm dancing jingle, and to this day, here I am still dancing jingle. Thank you for teaching me how to sew.
But you're still good fancy shawl dancer.
Well, no thanks to COVID. I don't have to anymore. That's my excuse. COVID is keeping me out of the power circle right now. I can't keep up.
Caught on fast. And, you know, and then I had another niece, she was only 9 and she wanted an outfit. She calls me up and says, I want an outfit so I could dance tomorrow. And, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, bring your mom and your grandmas and we'll see what we could do. And then, you know, I didn't think nothing, went about my day. And she calls me and says, we're on our way, you know, a couple hours later. And I'm like, okay, she's serious. So she pulls in and, you know, she coordinated this entire event. And, you know, so her grandmas and her mom and, you know, myself are cutting these, you know, cutting all these patterns, making French. And then she said, I need a feather, I need one of those plumes, like, you know, what you wear, you know. And she loved to dance. She would just dance around with her towel and stuff. And so I said, go see Uncle Waylon and see what you could do. So she's gone. I didn't think nothing. Here we are. And she comes back and I teach her. I'm like, watch this DVD on a brother's sewing machine. It comes with the DVD player and a DVD to learn how to use this sewing machine. And we learned how to use it, showed her how to do the stitches and stuff. 9 years old. And she sat down and she started sewing all of her little patterns on. Of course, we put the shawl together and her grandma's helped cut and trace different patterns. Awesome child. Man, she had a full outfit that next day for grand entry. It was all applique and cloth down to moccasins. And then here comes her uncle with some flickers and, hands them to her. And I said, did she ask? How did she ask you? She came politely and asked, and I'm like, there's a coordinator right there. There's like a young child. What I seen in that young little 9-year-old was a future community organizer to, bring all of us together and then some, and then the next day have her entire outfit, knowing that. For me, it was really awesome to see, knowing that she orchestrated that and wanted to do it. So when somebody wants to learn, I'm just like, okay, come on, let's go. Or if a young relative is going to graduate and they want to wear our traditional clothing and they ask, can you help me? I'm going to help them because, that's what we want. We want our young people to dress in our clothing, The moccasins, I'm not sure, I'll trade, I'll barter. It's time consuming, but
Yeah.
applique is good.
Yep. Well, that kind of goes with that old story. Remember, it's like give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, but teach him how to fish and he'll eat forever.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the same way with like different art skills.
Mm-hmm.
If you're eager to learn, you're going to learn. And then once you get the basic down, you're going to teach yourself new ways on doing it, what's easier for you, what doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, like the first time like I really started sewing on my own, I didn't know all the tricks behind it. I didn't know you could sew down some like interfacing. I didn't know you could put down like the sticky wonder under. So like there was me with 100 pins on one shawl thinking I could pin down every little design. And when I got it off the machine, my designs are like bubbled up. They're not flat, they're not pretty, they're not straight. Well, I wore it proudly, and I'm pretty sure my mom still has it today to show me the progress I've come from being 8 years old making my own outfit to now.
Yes. Yeah, I remember. It's so cool though. Because you have the best. Well, you have some of the best.
Yeah. And like how like another question I was gonna like ask you is like where do you get all this drive or what motivates you? Well, like you just answered it before I could even ask you. It was like you learned from other artists, you've learned from your family members. And I think that's just kind of like what makes it special and where it comes from. So will you emphasize on um, how is it being an artist and what keeps you going as an artist?
That's that self-motivation that they always say do what makes you happy. If you don't do what makes you happy in life, then they say you can have a job pays you, you go to work, you do whatever, but if you have a career, then you get to create that. And part of it, of course, I remember one time quitting my job and I just wanted to dance. I just wanted to powwow, and that's what we wanted to do. And I remember my mom was chewing me out, and I'm like, okay, well, you go tell them that job's open, And she just was like, oh yeah, okay. But we quit our jobs and we just danced and sewed and created. I was very young and came to the fabric district, that's every seamstresses, every dancer, every person who does any kind of sewing, that's our carnival. Mm-hmm. That's our Disneyland.
I was like, oh my goodness. And there was just big things of fabric, like taller than me, and you're like lugging them in your arms trying to yeah. Like, cause like when you're there, it's like there's so much fabric you can't even like find where the register is at. That's how packed it is. I couldn't believe it.
And
Entire
it's beautiful fabric.
beautiful. And I don't
Mhm.
know if you know this. This is my little trick and trade I could share with you. When you go to these places, a lot of times you can find the scrap box, and they'll even like sometimes they'll just give it to you. Sometimes they won't even charge you for it because it's a scrap. Well, I found like good 1 to 2, 3 yards in there of beautiful fabric they consider trash.
Beautiful, beautiful fabric.
Like,
Yes, yes.
oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. And and then the more beautiful, when you have all these different fancy fabrics, you want to create. You start drawing these pictures once you get familiar with your sewing machine, once you get you just want it to be different, especially like for fancy dancers. And you know you want your outfit to stand out. You want it to be, I mean, like there's different trends, like the whole checkered plaid. I couldn't understand it.
Mhm.
That whole phase, the fad of the plaid and stuff, I couldn't understand it.
That is
But yeah, but I remember making these beautiful, making these different shirts, and I'm like, oh yeah, that does look nice.
yeah,
And
and
then
I feel like I witnessed like some of the evolution. When I first started dancing, all I wanted were these sparkly outfits with butterflies and florals. But my mom made sure I just stayed humble. She wanted me to wear like all the geometric designs, just nice monotone colors, maybe throw in a little bit of red. And all I wanted was to just stand out and be sparkly, but she just wanted me to be humble. And next thing you know, we're back to square one where everybody is wearing these geometric designs and they're putting a twist on it. I like it. Like they'll add different textured fabrics to it, which I really like. I love seeing like a good wool with a silk on top of it.
oh yeah, and see, there's just different. Yeah, it's really cool, especially if you keep your outfits. Like I have some few of my outfits from like 1999, I think, and then that trend came back a few years ago.
It did.
And then all you have to do is change what kind of skirt that goes with it to
Yeah,
meet the
but like
new.
those 2000s right era, like it was like the bridal mermaid skirt. Do you remember that? And you'd spin and it would open at
Yep.
your knees. Yeah. I still have like I mean, I have all of my fancy shawl outfits, the ones that you made and then the blue one that I got from you. Remember it was like the navy blue and the
Yeah,
orange banner. I still have that one.
the hologram orange.
Yep. I like to call it the icebreakers orange. It looks like an icebreaker container.
That's true.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you just create. I don't know. I guess I've always liked to create different things, like, and then it's just like what's in. At one time, I remember whenever everybody was into bingo. So then we had all these little bingo dauber bags that were created with Pendleton and different geometric designs, and take them down to the local cap office where they're having bingo, and then you make your money, and not thinking about it as art at the time, but okay, we need to pay for this and this, and we want to go here and here, and I want this and this, and there's not a job around in sight for 100 miles, and this is where you live, so you're going to create. And there are artists out there now. I mean, like, this art space is really amazing because it's giving opportunity to a very, very I don't want to say desolate, maybe rural. I'm not sure what kind of area, but it's pretty awesome because it, down the road, if there were art markets and different things like that, it gives all of the artists opportunities to get sales out there,
Mhm.
to grow, like, um, if we had different stocks of shawls, if I made so many shawls, I would have to, stockpile them up and then wait for a major event and take them 300 miles away or put them online. And that wouldn't be able to stay here. If
Mhm.
we had, around the summertime, I get a lot of orders for shawls. And personally, I don't really care to fringe them, but I will if I have to. I have an auntie who fringes so beautifully. So I'd put the designs on them, she would fringe them, and we'd get them out the door and get them to wherever. And, you know, most of it's to family and to friends. And I don't really like to make anything, just pre-make it, you know. You can do that, but you're disappointed if you can't sell it, and then you start giving it. I mean, I do a lot, give it away,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
So it's just by order,
Mhm.
and you get backed up, you know, if you get an entire hen game team, or you get a drum group or something like that, you know. If somebody needed a set of chairs, you know, like you put the applique on the Pendleton or the trade cloth or something, and you upholster the chairs, just different things that, you know, you put your art in. Your car seat covers, I still have yet to make my custom car seat covers, and I just love it. You know, everybody has those Pendleton car seat covers, and I'm like, I don't want those kind, I want my kind.
Yes, and I think that's every artist's failure is we're constantly creating and either like selling or giving it away, but we never have anything for ourselves. And you think we would be our biggest promotion just wearing our own artwork majority of the time, but I never do. I don't even own a single hat that I've ever created. I don't even have my own hat.
And I like to say that you created that. Like the creativity, you know, of making those.
Oh, thank you. That is very nice. I like that, and I really like that a lot because sometimes I feel like a lot of artists don't get the recognition that they feel they deserve,
Hmm.
when things start to trend in different areas. Um,
Hmm.
like for me, I feel like you bringing a lot of like the sparkly stuff, maybe like around 2004, 5-ish. I feel like that was something that I learned from you, and I didn't recognize it anywhere else. And like if I saw something like that, reminds me of Helene. They must have got the same idea from Helene. So
Yeah.
another thing though is like now that you're in your studio space, I know that you're slowly moving in and slowing down from your camping and your science club that you like to do throughout the summer with the Lakota twist on it. What are some of your big plans that you intend to do in this next month or two or before the season ends?
Oh, geez. I've actually like been looking forward to this, to actually focus. What being in this art space gives me the opportunity to actually get everything going, you know, because our houses are, you have just a limited spot in your home. And my spot went from a small spot to a smaller spot, you know, and to a point where, you know, you're just getting one project done, and you know you have all these different duties to do, and you can't expand your creativity
Mhm.
because you don't have a set space. But I am like, I was telling one of my cousins, like, I have all these back orders, you know. And because of the pandemic, we haven't had powwows, we haven't had in-person gatherings, but there are still a lot of things that I want to finish, you know, like certain fancy shawl outfits, some grass dance outfits. I have some different ribbon skirts that need to be done, you know. And
Mhm.
just in general, I think I'll be in here a lot. We just finished up the Summer Science Institute, and I'm just really glad. I also got a chance to help with the Summer Bridge program at OLC,
Mhm.
help mentor some of the young future scientists in their research. And it's similar to what we do at the Lakota Summer Science Field Institute, where the young, the young future scientists, I like to say that because we're not just, you know, they say that it's science with a Lakota twist. It's not. It's indigenous science.
Mhm.
We have just even like our artwork here that we do. We use mathematics. We use, people think that the using the finding the circumference of a circle is not going to be irrelevant, when like you were just talking about the bridal cut.
Yeah.
You have to find the radius of a circle, and you have to find the circumference, and you know you have to use math,
Yeah.
all the geometric designs. We use science in every day, and with Lakota science, what we're teaching is how to allow the students to recognize the STEM application in our culture. so that it can help them in future educational opportunities, and they can relate it whenever it's our sciences. So they did everything from traditional plants to astronomy, geology, historical geology, visited the sacred sites, and then we wrapped up, they had these mini research projects where they had to present on posters. And the bridge program also did that, where it's completely online, with COVID, but it's a good opportunity to learn those techniques.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
in art.
follows in the long run.
People don't know that. That's great that you can elaborate on that for us. Another thing, since you have the traditional plant knowledge, have you done it yet? Have you dyed any of your own fabrics or any of your own horsehair using traditional plants in the area? And if you have, what are
Just quills.
plants that you can use? Because I know some hold better than most, and I know there's like different earth pigments that you can go pick in Minnesota, and you can mix with different fats or oils, and you can apply it that way to pottery and such. What is something that we can find in the Black Hills?
Just quills is the only thing that was tried, for dyeing different things. You can get different colors out, and this is my question also, like, how would it dye, like the buckskins, the fabrics that we have? How do you do it?
I have an idea of how you would do it without having to harden your leather. I would think you would create a powder base, and then like the same way you would apply chalk to your buckskin. You know how people keep it white with chalk? I feel like you could do it in that way, and then setting it. I'm not too sure how you would set it and not continue to let it get other fabrics colored. Something we did in the past too was onions. If you boil onions, their pills, they're like ruby purple color, and you can actually soak and boil your fabric in it. And then when you wash it through the washer, it kind of takes out some of that pigment. So it leaves you with a really light shade. But it's fun to play with because I know you're really into tie-dyes. So I wonder if you ever wanted to, we could just go like wild onion picking, turnip picking, and just take its roots and its flowers. And
Yeah, that would be amazing. I know that everybody's talking about the elderberries. It's a really good dye. It's not just a medicine, but it's a good dye. It comes out magenta. And then also the huckleberries. They don't really grow native here, but more up in the mountains, and they have a really good dye. I know that one of my friends used the dandelions and got like this real pastel yellow out of it. And I just always was like fascinated, like, well, okay, so if we didn't have vinegar, then what did we use to keep that in there?
yeah, I feel like I know the answer to this. Did they use a grease or a fat? Did they boil it with a bone marrow?
I don't know. See, that's those are questions like I want to learn too. But I do know, like all of the chemistry, the chemical reactions whenever you're brain tanning hides, and it's easier. I'm telling you, it's easier to use a sewing machine on a brain tan hide than it is to use commercial hides.
I can agree. So Catlin, he's one of our leather artists here in the building, and I haven't gotten the opportunity to do it yet, but I'm going to here very soon. But he sews on a sewing machine with his leather stuff, but he has an industrial sewing machine. And we were just talking about that too, like the different effects from the brain tan opposed to the commercial. And the brain tan is softer.
Mm-hmm.
The commercial one kind of leaves it looking wider, I must say, but it makes it feeling a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. And it's easier to bead on brain tan, easier to quill on brain tan. I don't know. It's just the chemical, the chemistry of it, and all the, like the molecules, the reaction that it gets whenever it's brain tanned.
Oh yeah, that was another thing.
But
Someone told me that each animal's brain is large enough for its entire body to be tanned. I thought that was like a really cool fun fact. It's almost kind of like our brains are this size, our hearts are this size.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And the first time that I never brain tanned, never, whenever when I'd help my husband, Mahasani Whalen, when he would make his drums and stuff, he has a certain way on making it, and I'd help him scrape it off, get the hair off. He has his own techniques and everything. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to learn and at the girls' school, and we had an awesome instructor, Richard Geigel,
Cool.
and he taught the students how to brain tan buffalo hides, and we did a complete hide. And when we first did, it was so funny because these young students are like, we're gonna learn how to scrape a hide, and I'm like, I don't know, we're all learning together. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, this
My first time.
does this, and I'm just an assistant. And what we're doing is we're reclaiming our rights as Lakota women. This is what we did, and it's amazing that we have teachers to teach us that.
Mhm.
And I remember one of them saying, Tui, do you know what you're doing? And I'm like, just close your eyes and channel your grandmas. And they were like, okay, and I'm like, that's what I'm doing. And it came out so beautiful. And I just wanted to wear this buffalo hide, and it's just awesome, the techniques in it. So then the next ones, were easier.
Mhm.
And what we try to do through indigenous, generations, indigenous ways is to use, if we're going to do, a buffalo harvest, everything is used, and nothing goes to the locker, I mean, that's good. That's good that we have these buffalo slaughterhouses, and we have the meat locker to process our meat. But that takes away from the energy of that medicine from that buffalo.
Mhm.
So we try to harvest everything, and then the hide, we use it for education with different schools. And what our goal is, like, one day what I want to see is that every child that comes to winter camp gets to sleep on a buffalo hide.
Yeah.
That comes to camp, and like there's one hide for boys and one hide for girls right now, and it's just awesome that they could just lay that hide down and put their sleeping bag on there, or
Mhm.
and know that it's tanned by our people and it's harvested by our people.
Mhm. I'm so happy you brought that up. I was literally just talking about that with another friend of mine. I was telling him about like this traditional ecological knowledge, and we were talking about buffalo from years ago, like the Pleistocene era. And in this book, they were talking about all the different ways you could use the buffalo. So not only is it like the Home Depot of the people or the Walmart of the people, nothing ever went to waste. There's always a purpose for everything, even down to its hooves, to its sinew, everything. But one thing that I learned, and I was actually talking to Waylon about this, is did you know, and don't say Charlie said, it's just something I read. They would dig about 3 to 4 feet into the earth and then lay the buffalo in there and then bury it again. They would do that during winter, and then they would go to their next winter camp. So when they would come back that summer, they would dig up this buffalo, and the buffalo they called was putrid in its own juices to give it another flavor. So like how people eat moldy cheese and different moldy breads and stuff. It was a way that they went about and adding more flavor to their buffalo. And
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, my mom doesn't agree with me when I tell her this story. She goes, "We would never eat spoiled meat." But I just think it's a way of curing your meat. I'm sure they threw some minerals in there, like different types of rocks and stuff to kind of add to that. But it makes sense. I mean, you can only eat so much unflavored buffalo throughout the year before you got tired of it, right? So like it's an art. We were creative. We figured out these ways to make buffalo more than just a piece of jerky or some meat in our stew. We were creative, and we added berries, and we added different salts from the earth, different leaves.
Wow, I didn't know that. Learn something new every day. I know that there's a from the Pleistocene epic, there's down in Shattern, there's a buffalo kill site, a buffalo jump. And yeah, down, not on the other, it's on the other side, it's called Hudson Lake.
Uh-huh.
It's over by north of Crawford, Nebraska. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of evidence of, like the bison that were 17-foot tall.
Big bisons. Yeah. Um, they
Yeah.
Talking about these other like very large bisons that were in Canada and Alaska, and they were comparing them to the dinosaurs. I'll have to share this book with
They were after that time a little bit. I think it was probably, you know, when the time after the dinosaurs is when
maybe
they were there. And there were other different,
or
you know,
something.
like the two-toed horses and different things like that.
Yeah, this is always my favorite topic to talk about.
But there is also, you know, like if you walk around out there, even out in our Badlands areas, you'll see evidence of, you know, like the arrowheads and different things, and it's like that era. It's the time. It proves that our people were here, basically. Proves that there was no, you know, we didn't come across the Bering Strait. But the
Yeah.
buffalo were gigantic. Along the Missouri River, you know, they have the fossils that are up in Rapid City and in the repository up there that are just enormous, and they just show you the power of the Buffalo Nation.
And then I seen on another fellow artist, he was in the Badlands and he took pictures of everything, and he found like an ancient fireplace from so long ago. And I don't really know how to describe it, like how it was in the earth, but it's like kind of like the earth opened up and like you can see the timeline layers in the Badlands and where exactly this fire was. So it's just crazy to think like how did we get the timeline, and then how is that fireplace down here? Makes me
Yeah,
really
well,
want to learn
it's
more.
the erosion too. You know, like the Badlands are all just volcanic ash that eroded over time. You know, over 35 billions of years. You know, but the
Yeah.
Badlands up here are younger.
Mhm.
From the when you get up to the tablelands, and so that's where you're able to see that. And I always wanted to know, how did they, you know, of course we know how they put their clothing together and everything, but it amazes me to, you know, to wonder about how did they make things, what was their creativity. I mean, they made everything. The entire economy was the buffalo.
Mhm. That's what I really enjoy about creating from the heart. I feel like every artist can design and give back to the community with their art and leaving their imprint when they're not here anymore. But when you actually take the time to put the sleeve onto the shirt and complete your shirt and put it together, and then add every single ribbon around your skirt, just doing it all by hand, like a love in every stitch. That's something that I always like to base back like onto like the real seamstress of just being able to take the time and what goes into the process of creating it from scratch rather than just being able to buy different pieces here and there and calling it art. When you're creating your art, Helene, what what is something that you hope people will remember you by, or what is the message you want to give back to everybody who wears your art?
That you are your own, you are the expert of your art. So, I mean, of course, there's critics out there that are going to say this is this and this and this, whatever. But if you come across an item that somebody made, and you know they're going to ask you, can you redo these for me? I think it's disrespectful to that artist. You know, like per se, somebody brings a fan, you know, to get redone, and they're gonna cut off a person's beadwork and their thread work and take apart the whole handles and stuff and give it to somebody. I think it's disrespectful. You should always respect other artists in know that if you make a mistake in your art, that it's a trademark. That's how it was taught to me, was that that's your trademark. And it was meant to be like that. And when you're sewing, like there's certain times that, you know, young people should never say I'm bored, or they should never say there's nothing to do, because there is. You can Google how to make ribbon skirts now. You can Google how to bead keychains. I can't sit still. Like, I grew up watching people when they weren't outside working, building, cleaning, doing whatever, doing chores. They were inside beading, sewing, carving, making things. making, you know, all of these different art to sell to support our family, to support, you know, make so many of these things to make a big sale and pay all the bills,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and not have to depend on going to the CAP office to ask for assistance and going through the loops and getting yourself frustrated.
Yeah.
Use your art as a tool so that you can be sustainable to yourself.
Um,
Even food is art.
yes, it is. I love that you said that too. So I always like to bring up food. I like to bring up a building, and I like to bring up clothing because you can't actually like be in a potato sack and call it clothing. Because if we didn't have art, then that's exactly what you're in. Or the same with the building. Like you're going to need the artist to build the building and design the building within. And same thing with food. Otherwise, we just be eating plain potato chips all the time. But so
Yep.
like you mentioned like being sustainable off your own art. With COVID and everything that just happened, we were all pressured to stay home, not go anywhere. And I assume you had a home studio space. And now that you got your own space here at the building, what are some tips and tricks you can give to the people at home to create their spaces at home? What are some ways that they can create a better home studio space for themselves?
Well, at home, you have to share your space. Like, I have to share my space with these guys. They came with me, and they're crazy. And I'm going to tell you now, like, they're going to run by me. They came with me today to help here at the art space. But when you're at home, the best time for me to have my art space is early in the morning. I'll tell you, before the sun comes up. Nobody else is up. You have that area, and you know your family members will learn. You learn too how to respect each other's space, and you can leave things. I mean, when I'm working on a project, it goes, you know, goes all over. When you're laying out a shawl, you need the entire living room or the entire kitchen or your art space. um, I have these different containers that have all of the different material, because you can never have enough material, right? You can never have enough colors of threads. And get the good stuff in your home space, especially if you live way out, away from town. Make sure that you have enough supplies to finish your project. Make sure that you have top stitch needles whenever you're doing applique, because that does the best, especially if you're working with metallic threads. And if you have any questions with ordering supplies for native applique, I order from powwowfabrics.com. And I really promote our fellow Indigenous businesses, and they are native. Nicole Ray, I believe. I mean, you know, it's all about uplifting our fellow Indigenous artists and our Indigenous businesses, and that's how we're going to survive.
Powwow Fabrics?
powwowfabrics.com.
I think I've been there. Do they sell all the beautiful crystal satin with the florals on it? That's that. Yeah, I've been there. I
All the ribbon, every size, all the sewing supplies that you need, the right sewing supplies, the correct stuff.
Yeah, because you can get lost in Joann's, you can get lost in Hobby Lobby. You get things that you actually don't need, but then you find yourself keep buying it. But those crystal satins are so beautiful, and that's something that I remember when I wanted all the floral stuff. That's what I wanted was the crystal satin. So once I was old enough to do that and get my own decisions, like in my outfits, that's what I went for. I love it. I have it in every color, every shade of green, every shade of pink, white, black, purple. I love the red. The red almost doesn't look red. It's a different color, but it's a shade red.
Yeah.
Now that you're in your space and you're not working from home, what is your next big project that you're going to do?
My next big project is actually a pile of, I say pile because they're ribbon skirts galore, and I have one fancy shawl outfit that's on the table that needs to be completed, and I have 2 ribbon shirts that need to be completed. So,
Mhm.
and that pretty much, oh, I just love it. I just love that there's space to finish everything and
Mhm.
there's time.
Um, that's something that I always appreciated about having my own space because now that I have the twins, I have to share everything. But I enjoy, even if I'm not actually creating, I actually like taking apart my fabrics and laying them out, letting them breathe, filling each one. Because sometimes you buy your stuff and then you forget why you bought it. You lose that spark. But if you could just get back into your collection and just fill it all again, that right there is motivation enough to just like pick back up where you left off. So now that you don't have to do any of your December obligations,
And then
um,
also, like, for those of you who, you might not have the budget to buy material. I
mhm.
find really good, awesome pieces of material in the thrift stores.
I
Haven't been able to go since before the pandemic, but I find a lot. And, whenever you learn how to cut your fabric, like starting, to be conservative,
mhm,
you can keep all of those extra pieces and use
project.
them for other things. And, you'll find you'll
Project.
recycle different material. Yep.
Mhm. One time, April Debray, I must have been in my sophomore year of high school. She brought me, like, it was still like on the big rack, just wrapped up. It was thick. It was a whole bunch of plaid. So that was when the plaid scene was going on. But we did a trade. She gave me that entire piece of fabric, and I made Hayana a little fancy shawl outfit. It was a good barter.
Awesome.
Right around this time, I wanted to do a Q&A with our audience, but we actually don't get to do that today. But um, we could use the remainder of this 15 minutes and we can just continue chatting about everything that we just talked about. Or if there's anything that you feel like you want to talk about, you want to share some of your tips and tricks with everybody else at home.
Mm, No, I just know that right now is it's really hot outside. Um, Stay inside and stay hydrated, and it is a good time to bead. You can sit still and do beadwork. I truthfully, in July is the time whenever if I need something done, I would bead
Mm-hmm.
because you're not using up all your energy. You have to sit still. I didn't realize it was 108 degrees out today. I was outside, and then I was like, oh my God, it's really warm. And then I freaked myself out whenever I seen that it was 108 degrees. And my cousin, she laughed at me because, she was in Kuwait, and she's like, oh yeah, this ain't nothing. And I'm like, okay, I'll quit complaining. But I just remember, like, it's too hot to do anything. Just be during the day and sew at night, and not when there's hardly any thunderstorms. Knock on wood. It's a good time to sew.
Mm-hmm. I bet you there's going to be a minor thunderstorm tomorrow because I feel like every single time tree day comes around, it rains and gets really windy right on tree day.
Yeah, yeah. And those, I think everybody's probably sewing. If they're not at Sundances, they're sewing, getting ready for Sundances. Even though
Mm-hmm.
you have all winter to get ready, you might not find that beautiful fabric until, or get motivated until days before Sundance, and you're like,
And
oh,
usually that's how
just
it goes, right? Usually you find the motivation for your own stuff. You're finally gonna sew your own dress and shawl that year, and everyone sees that you're working on it, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Well, can you make mine too? Can you make mine too?" Next thing you know, you're making the whole family and the people next door.
yeah.
That was
Oh,
always me. I was always dedicated the family sewer. Like everybody came to me. Then finally, Star stepped up, so Star does her own sewing now too.
well, I remember you guys helped sew during Gear Up days.
Oh my God, yes, I ran that sweatshop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because before they wanted me to do 400 bags, and I did 250, and I'm like, I can't finish them. So between me, Tiffany, Phelps, and Star, oh my God, we sat there for hours at those sewing machines, and people would come and check on us. How's the sweatshop doing? And we were just getting those bags done. But oh my God, talk about dedication. That was self discipline. They
Yeah,
said them by Friday. We got the supplies Wednesday, and we were done.
Yep, I remember that. Like, yep, that's how you do it. That's how you get it done. But there's I think people, once you sew, you're gonna get into it. Like I remember one time we had this workshop, and it was the first one with Oyate Techa. I have to give a shout out to Oyate Techa, who supports the community, the youth, the young people, young families, and really supported the efforts in making dance outfits. And so the first one we did, they brought out the sewing machines, and they were donated from different places. They weren't brand new, but they were new to everybody. They were tuned up, ready to go, and the people came in. We started, with the sewing workshop and everything. And the next day we were gonna finish, and there was a lot to do. And the ladies, they caught the transit to get to class from different communities. And we had that place, we asked Rose, can we stay till midnight? And she's like, yeah. And then pretty soon the boyfriends and husbands were calling and pulling in. And in my mind, I'm like, how come they don't have the car? How come you have the car? And it's like, when they do pull in, we're like, hey, can you run and get us a pizza or get us some drinks for our ladies here? But it was so beautiful. There were so many outfits that came out of there, and the young people that were at the workshop, I see them, they're little champion dancers, young men, young women, and they're making their own outfits. And that's how you do it. I just always give a shout out to Oyate Techa, because they supported that effort in a time when it's really hard to do anything like this in the community. They were there, and they made sure that we got the supplies to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a ripple effect after that. It was like, the communities can do this, and they seen it done. And so, each community will have sewing. It's just like sewing parties. I just love it.
Sewing parties. Remember we used to do that too a long time ago? We'd cook
Yeah.
soup, we'd all work on different projects.
For the weekend.
Yeah, yep. And that's what we're doing here this week. Autumn with Dances with Words at the here at the building. She's going to be doing a sewing project with her group. I don't know exactly what they're going to be making yet. Maybe ribbon skirts, but we'll find out. I'm anxious for that because I get to pop in.
Mm-hmm. It's
But
always good.
what I did recently is, so there's the new school, the Lakota Tech School. So a dream of mine was to be the dance sponsor. So I put in an application to be the dance sponsor because all I really want to do part time is pack a bag full of rubber bands, hairspray, water bottle, my comb, and I just want to be able to go to these powwows, sit down in the bleachers and braid my kids' hair, and just sit back and like eat popcorn and drink pop and just watch all these little powwows, because a lot of people don't remember this, but we used to have Techawa Chipi Okola Kichie. I always like to give them a shout out because they're actually the ones that like grew me into a powwow dancer and supported that, because my mom was like always busy working and she wasn't capable of taking me to every powwow that I wanted to go to, but the school had that.
Yep.
To hop on and go, and everyone just watched out for each other. So now it's my turn.
Techawa Chipi.
I used to be Junior Miss Techawa Chipi Okola Kichie.
I love that organization. Yes, well-deserved shout out.
Yes. So, fingers crossed they call me back because I really just want to be a sponsor. Can you picture me every other Friday just with my brown sack lunches hanging out with all the kids?
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun being a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
You'll enjoy it. So hopefully you get it.
I will love it. I will just go through every grand entry so proud carrying our school flag.
Yeah, and one thing I liked about being a Techawa Chipi sponsor was the weekly practices with the youth,
mm-hmm.
the little powwow practices to get them all going with and then making sure that their outfits were completed and teaching them how to make their outfits.
Yeah, that's something that goes along with this sponsorship too, is I'll get to help them create their regalia and beadwork.
Yeah.
I'm anxious for that.
Cool.
And even
Well,
if I
I hope it
did
works
like
out
get
for you.
a job, I still want to just pop in and go to every powwow.
Yeah. And get the big, I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, it would have been Techawachipi finals. And all I could think about was those big popcorn balls that they sell. Somebody goes around selling those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just want a walking taco and a big popcorn ball at Techawachipi.
In my head, I'm like, I just want to get like a warm pickle that is not even cold and like a flat pop and just sit there and watch the powwow.
And enjoy it. Yeah, well, hopefully that, we have more people getting vaccinated. I hope that a big thing is get your COVID vaccine so that we can come together and have powwows, so our youth can be safe. Our young 11 and under children can be safe with the new variant. Wear your mask when you're out there, do your part and social distance, do your part and get vaccinated. If you haven't already, I really want to send that message out for people to get your COVID-19 vaccine.